So this is about Senate Bill 762 and the wildfire lands risk map. So we're going to inform you tonight. Purpose of this meeting is to inform, educate, and motivate. We've got to motivate to action. We can't be one and done. If we just have this meeting, we've educated, but we've not informed the rest of the people that have a problem with this. So we need to have the next meeting. We'll work on that. So tonight we're going to talk about how this is going to affect you. Senate Bill 762, what's inside of it, and what's it mean to your property rights, and what's it mean to the long-term future of Josephine County. So we're going to go through, we're going to have a fire, and we're going to have, I have a speaker who's going to go over the risk map and fire, because this is supposed to be about wildfires, right? Okay, well, I don't think it is. Then we're going to talk about real estate and what it means to your property rights. And then we're going to talk about land use laws and your property rights. I keep this because if I don't have some note to go by, pretty soon we'll talk about the War of 1812, and that doesn't do us any good here. So there's a hidden agenda behind this. There's people who brought this forth. This wasn't your doing. It was the government that did this on backroom deals. We got to stand up and fight this kind of legislation. We won't have a future in this in America. I look around. How many 20-year-olds do we have in the room? How many 30-year-olds? How many 40-year-olds? How many 50-year-olds? How about a 60-year-old, guys? And how many 70-year-olds do we have? There's our problem right there. That's the problem. Where are the 20-somethings? Where are the 30-somethings? We're doing this for the future of our children and our grandchildren. If we don't stand up and organize, we're going to get run over and mowed over by more legislation like this. So we're going to have, at the end of this meeting, we're going to have a question and answer period, because I want to hear from you. And we want to pass that on to elected officials. So we're going to save about a half hour into this presentation to take questions. I'll have a mic around the room. This legislation came through extreme green environmentalists. Okay. Oh, well, I will. A lot of you guys know who I am. I'm Ron Smith. You might have seen my face around here. Yeah, I'm Ron Smith. I'm a property rights advocate, have been most of my life. So I'm here because I see this as an attack on your private property rights. It's exactly what it is. It's wise to do due diligence with your land. We do live in an area of extreme fire. I shouldn't say extreme, fire. But where do most of those fires start? What are they doing? Why put the burden on the property owners? There's no way that you cleaning up your property is going to stop catastrophic wildfires. What's going to stop catastrophic wildfires is for the feds to go out there and manage their land. We have a list of fires that you're going to see that are pretty interesting how this has gone in the last few years. So, are we the last generation of free Americans? Are we the last generation? I hope to God we're not. That's why we're having this meeting. It's time to stand up. It's time to unite. It's time to fight back. Hey folks, it's now or never. It's now or never. So this meeting is more than about 762. It's an important issue because without property rights, what do you have? You're going to use your First Amendment and your Second Amendment to try to get your property rights back. So property rights are actually the central theme of my life, because I know the number one goal in the Communist Manifesto is to abolish private property rights. Okay, now, if you look at the Biodiversity Treaty, Agenda 21, its number one goal is to abolish private property rights. Okay, do you think maybe that's communistic? Now, I'm going to tell you something about the greenies, because I fought them for a lot of time. They wear a green mask, but behind their mask, they're red, communist. Okay? If you don't know that, you need to wake up and study it. But come talk to me after the meeting, and I'll explain all this. So we're going to go through 762 and tear it apart. This is very dangerous legislation. And I'm going to read a statement from Senator Dennis Lithicum out of Klamath Falls. He wrote a newsletter and he nailed it at the very end of that newsletter. And we're going to show you how dreadful this legislation is. So, I've got a timekeeper. Where's my timekeeper? Oh, there you are. How much time? How much time do I got? 2 minutes. I can talk a lot in 2 minutes. So I would like some help paying for this. There's donation cans around the room. We have ice cold bottled water over here for you. And if you could help me pay for this meeting and do our future meetings, because we cannot be one and done. We have to organize. So there's a next meeting and a next meeting. We're always talking about going to Jackson County and doing this. So here we are. We have to have a wake-up call by having somebody attack our private property rights. You know what I learned a long time ago? You've got to realize you have a dog in the fight. It's your life, it's your kid's life, it's the future of America. Yeah, this is a wake-up call because it affects your personal space, your own little bubble. But folks, there's a lot of things out there that's destroying America. Your little bubble's going to swallow it up with that. So it's really time to unite. It's time to be together on unity. And this meeting is just the beginning. So I'm going to turn this over to Ralph and let Ralph introduce himself. Ralph has 27 years in firefighting. He's very versed in this, so he's going to tell us, he's got a slide protection. We're going to go through a PowerPoint presentation. Will you hold your questions till the end of the meeting? We saved a half an hour for it. What I don't want is I don't want long statements and rants. What we want is questions that we can try to get answers to. Okay, so I know there's a lot of questions out about this legislation, and there should be, because we have our elected officials have done a lousy job of informing us about this. So without any further ado, here's Ralph.
Hi everybody, I want to thank you all for coming. Because of your involvement is why this map got temporarily pulled back, temporarily. Okay, it wasn't any politician that got it revoked, it was the outrage of all the public, and thank you for doing that. Okay. My name is Ralph Weilding. I was a firefighter for 27 years. The last 12 I was an engine company captain. Any firefighters in the room? Okay. We like to throw darts at each other when we're speaking. You guys know what I'm talking about. Hold them for later if you can. None of us know everything, but I'm going to try to give a review for some people. For the firefighters it will be. For some of you it will be a new deal. We're going to talk about how this thing got going, how one person in our state government controls this. I'm going to talk a little bit about defensible space. It is a good thing. We're going to talk about the miscrewing of the word extreme in this situation that they're doing. Because extreme always went with fire weather, extreme fire weather, not the land you're on. Okay? And it takes certain things to make it extreme, and we'll talk about that. Okay? So one thing, this is what happened last night. There's all the lightning strikes that hit the ground. Okay? Please, everybody, respect our firefighters, men and women that are on the ground. They're busting their ass. Okay? They're pawns in this game. They don't get to give their opinion to their upper management about SB762. They're just doing the job that they love. Okay? We all got this in the mail. That's why we're here. It's been temporarily pulled back, but guarantee you the next one's going to pretty look similar to it. You've all seen these signs. Extreme fire danger. The arrow changes. Why is it extreme? It's because the fuel's dried out. The temperature's going up, so the humidity is down in the teens or in single digits. In your 1 hour, 10 hour, 100 hour, 1,000 hour fuels, they're drying. 1 hour fuel is dry grass. 1,000 hour fuel is 6 to 8 inch trees. and they check the moisture level in them. And when it gets serious, when those start drying out, can be in extreme fire conditions, okay? And that's where we're at right now. So they're twisting this term to make us all think, I live on an extreme piece of property. Oh my God, it's gonna self-ignite, it's gonna self-combust, okay? There's a term, the fire is in alignment, okay? Fire in full alignment is when all components of fuel, weather, and topography align up, mainly with the wind, got an ignition source, last night it was lightning, and it's off to the races. And you get extreme fire behavior. It's weather, okay? These are some of the deadliest fires in the US, wildland fires. Griffith Park in 1933, Oakland Hills, South Canyon Fire, Yarnell. South Canyon Fire, 9 Oregonians lost their life there from Prineville. Okay, Camp Fire in Paradise. What do they all have in common? The wind got behind them. Okay, topography, the fuel bed, okay, cause extreme fire behavior. Okay, National Wildfire Coordinating Group, those are the ones we get our certification, get red carded through so we can fight wildland fires. Okay, this is what they say is the critical 4 elements for extreme fire behavior. Low RH, wind, unstable air, drought conditions, which, dry the fuel beds out. Okay, let's talk about Kate Brown for a second. Okay, I tried to find nice pictures of her. Okay, as governor, Kate Brown, she appoints over 250 committees and the appointees in those committees. Okay, a large group of that's since this wildland thing has come. How does she maintain control over so many people? You guys are going to remember local case, Flying Lark, Travis versus Kate Brown, right next door. Okay, the Oregon Racing Commission, who the head guy on it's an attorney, he thought he's not violating any Oregon law. You know, he can have his gambling license. Okay, however, the Oregon DOJ, in their opinion, said it was against, it was a violation. So before they met in executive session to make the final decision, what's Kate Brown say? And I'm going to read this. As dedicated public servants, I know you all appreciate the significance of following the law. If members of the commission vote to take any action inconsistent with the law as interpreted by the DOJ, I would regard any such conduct as contrary to my expectations for your appointment. Okay, this could be grounds for removal from the appointment as provided under the cause standards identified in Oregon regulation. You see the number. Okay, next they met in executive session. Okay, the Oregon Racing Commission said they felt bound to abide by the DOJ opinion despite their individual disagreements. Okay, she threatens people, I'll remove you from that committee I appointed you to unless you go with what I want. These are just some of the committees she's appointed for wildland, okay? Something comes out to me that they want to do a lot of controlled burning. And one of the main things, I don't see ODF doing it, but when you come to the U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management, they like to burn, but they do it the wrong time of the year. You all know what happened in New Mexico recently. Prescribed burn, took off, burned a bunch of houses. So all of a sudden, she decided after 762, I need a certified burn manager. I need a 9-member certified burn management rulemaking advisory committee, and I need a 5-member smoke management review committee. Bob's going to talk a little bit about something else they're adding in here too that's going to cost money. But you got to wonder, what is that about? Okay? Because I believe they want to do a bunch of controlled burns. Okay? Right in 2019, Kate signed an executive order creating the Governor's Council on Wildfire Response. 1,000 Friends of Oregon, quote, our organization is represented on Governor Kate Brown's Wildfire Response Council and chairs its land use subcommittee. quote, part of our work is to combat wildfires is advocating for legislation designed to protect our forests and farmlands from development and increase wildfire risk, which is why we supported the successful passage of the bill in the 2019 legislature. HB 2225 makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to do any construction for a dwelling on private, rural, or farmland. They're trying to control what you do on your property. Oregon, the Senate bill was signed into law by Kate Brown on June 26th. Okay, she signed it at the World Forestry Center in Portland, Oregon. Am I too far away?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, with that, the 19-member panel, their task is to improve wildland preparedness through 3 key strategies: creating fire-adapted communities, okay? Developing safe and effective responses, increasing the resiliency of Oregon's landscapes. Okay, what about increasing the resiliency of the federal lands we're surrounded by? Okay, and doing some cleanup there. Okay, how many people are surrounded by BLM or U.S. Forest Service land? A lot. My wife and I, we live on Douglas Drive off Riverbanks, and we don't have it right in our backyard, but not far up the street, you've got it. Okay, the people responsible for Senate Bill 762 are Governor Jeff Golden, Senator from Ashland, Pam Marsh. Jeff Golden was the sponsor of this bill. Pam Marsh carried it in the House. Christopher Dunn, he's the guy that made our map that we all are here about. Calvin Mukamoto, he's a state forester. He's appointed by a group we'll get into a little bit further. Terry Good, she's the Oregon State Police Superintendent. Believe it or not, the Oregon State Police appoints the State Fire Marshal. Okay? Oregon Forestry Committee, chaired by Jim Kelly. Okay, he's a little special guy too. And then the Rules Committee, there's 24 people, and the statewide risk map rulemaking committee. Senator Jeff Golden. Anybody here from Jackson County? He's up for re-election this year. Pam Marsh, okay? House representative from Ashland, okay? District 5, she's up for re-election next year. So, you know what they want us all to do? But you know that old saying, don't do as I do as I say. Rules for thee, not for me. Public information, their addresses. My wife and I looked them up, took a little road trip. Front of Jeff Golden's house in Ashland on Oak Street. Okay, any problem there? There's the wires going through the trees. There's the back of the house, the riparian area. The house is located, I'm going to estimate about a half mile from the point of origin of the Alameda fire. If the wind would have changed, it would have ripped right through there. You still see all the green back there, the oak trees, the grass. That's the fence line at the back of this house. Okay? Pam Marsh's house. This is the AD corner of the house. The A side of the house is where the address is on a house. So you go around clockwise. You got A, B, C, D. This is the A and D corner. Pretty overgrown. That's the AD corner again, with the front of the house showing. That is the B side. Anybody want to guess what color the map is? Green. Where they are? Green. Yeah, green. There it is. Okay. The stars at the bottom designate approximately where their houses are. That is the burn scar from the Alameda fire. What happens after, we're going to do questions later, please. What happens after wildland fire burns, like Calamiascus, biscuit fire? Brush grows, invasive weeds grow. They get real tall real fast, especially if we get a lot of rain. And we don't take snags down in salvage log. So it kind of gets to look like that. Okay, that's not going to burn, that's why it's green, right? Okay, that dry grass, the flame lanes you get off that would be pretty incredible. Okay, here's another player, Christopher Dunn, the mad map maker. This is the OSU professor that developed the map. And there's been some really great people out there that are involved with mapping and stuff that have commented on some of the Facebook pages and stuff and challenged him to how he came up with this. I don't know if any of them are in the room today, but I tell you what, they ripped into him and did really good. Here's Cal Mukamoto. He's now the forester. He's the head of ODF. He ran for Senate out of Coos Bay and lost, and I think Kate awarded him a job by telling Jim Kelly, hey, why don't you give Cal a job? Okay, here's some quotes from Jim Kelly. You'll meet him in the next couple slides. We have a world that has been turned upside down by climate change and the new fire reality. He'll take over agency as it grapples with climate change. Oregon Board of Forestry, 7-member citizen board appointed by Kate Brown. Okay, the mission of the board is to lead Oregon in implementing policies and programs that promote sustainable management of Oregon's private and public forests. The Oregon Board of Forestry appoints the forester, Cal Mukamoto. So, again, where does he take his marching orders from? Comes from Kate, down through chain of command. There he is. He's also a member of 1,000 Friends of Oregon. He's the chairman of the board, the Oregon Board of Forestry. Wildland-urban interface. Okay, we all kind of know now, if we've been listening to stuff, what it is. It's where development meets the wildland, pretty much. Okay. Term wasn't used till, I think it was first, Forest Service used it in a document in 1987. Fire Service wise, we started seeing it in the 2000s, where they do it, and we pretty much call it the interface. We didn't use the whole long term. Okay, let's do a little bit on what can affect a wildland fire and the growth. Okay, weather. Weather is the big one. And to get extreme conditions, you have a consistent 20-mile-an-hour wind or higher. Okay, the direction of the wind, the duration of the wind, the outside temperature, your humidity, are referred to as RH, your fuel moistures, your dew point, recovery. Okay, a lot of times you'll hear them say on the news, there was no recovery overnight. Meant the temperature didn't lower enough, and we didn't get enough humidity to climb up to put some moisture back. Okay, so there was virtually no recovery. Topography, another major player in here. Steep slope, the aspect. Is it south facing? South facing always warms up most of the day. Okay, so it's gonna get its ignition temperature and even auto ignite, possibly. Okay, flat ground. Fire gonna burn like crazy on flat ground? Now without the wind behind it. Steep slope, it'll develop some of its own wind. But again, the wind is what is one of the real critical things here. Fuel, dry heavy fuel, what type is it? Is it light and flashy, brush and trees, heavy timber? What's the density of the fuel? Okay, the fuel moisture, and there's a term, continuous fuel beds, and this can play with the defensible space. Okay, you want to have breaks, whether it's a driveway, neighbors' driveways and easements going down, and it's where you don't, where the fuel will come and then there won't be any, like a fire break when they cut them with a dozer. Okay, basically what they're doing, they're stopping the fuel bed. So you eliminate fire spread. I already kind of brought this up, 1 hour, 10 hour, 100-hour fuels. We don't need to go too much into it. 1 hour fuels for less than a 1/4 inch dry grasses. 10 hour, okay, 1/4 inch to 1 inch, 100 hour, 1 to 3 inch, 1,000 hour fuels, 3 to 8 inch. And this is how they measure and start making that, we're getting into this extreme where they change the dial on the gauge in front of the firehouses or out here on 199, and we see those signs change. ODF just raised the thing, we can't run chainsaws and stuff because we got in the extreme period. Fire weather watch. We were under a red flag, I think, earlier today, but it's gone. And it's just letting them know that within the next 12 to 72 hours, we're gonna probably get into the criteria that meets red flag, where real low humidity, dry fuels, possibly winds, thunderstorm, which is your ignition source. Okay, one thing I'll real quick joke about, you sit in the firehouse and you watch the news guys come on, the weather people. And we used to sit there and go, okay, they just told all the arsonists, it's time to light the fire. Because they go, we're under a red flag. If a fire starts today, oh my God, it's gonna be terrible. And we just sit there and look at each other in the day room and go, oh, here we go. We're gonna get fires because you just told Rodney, from Backdraft, hey, time to light the fire. Defensible space, why is it important? Okay, it can save your home. Okay, but there's what I call sensible defensible space. I'm not against it. I'm for it. We clean up our yard a little bit. But some of the stuff they want you to do is crazy. Especially if you get the ground fuels up, you trim your ladder fuels up a little bit. So nothing on the ground, you can climb up the tree and get the tree going. Okay? Crown fire is a totally different story. Hard to put out, hard to fight. Basically, the wind's got to stop, or there's got to be a break with no trees and stop it. They're one of the hardest fires to fight. You can go online and look at this stuff, talk about defensible space. They basically don't want you to have anything in your house. Got a friend of mine, a fellow firefighter, lived in Placerville, California. His insurance company canceled him. He had to go to Lloyd's of London. They told him to cut everything down within 300 feet of his house. He did, looked terrible, then they canceled him. He had to go to what's called the California Fair Plan. And his insurance went up to $7,000 a year. He now lives in Texas. This is our yard, showing you some ladder fuel and stuff on the ground. And there we spent, Caroline, an hour, cleaned it up a little bit. That's all you need to do. Fire ain't gonna come through there. Right past the fence, there's 2 driveways, so you gotta break into the fuel bed. This is down the street from us. They did a little cleaning up, but embers blow. They get into E-vents, basement vents, and get in your insulation or attic, start a fire. This basically is an abandoned structure, and you get embers going underneath that or in the windows, and that's just gonna now feed a fire, because once that gets going, the plume's gonna get all the embers from it going, and that's the kind of stuff, try to clean up. This is over off Marcy Loop. Here's a good example of ladder fuels and a lot of ground fuel, okay? Saw that and I went, oh. And then how'd you like to be the person who lives right across the street that's done a fantastic job cleaning their place up? Fire's not gonna spread in the ground there. It's not gonna get up in the trees, okay? The other one, corridor of Marcy Loop and Bonnie. Really good job. Okay, fuel types we talked a little bit about. Grass, leaf litter, brush, pine needles, or ground fuels. Ladder fuels, medium to large brush beneath a tree canopy, low branches, tall grass. That's a ladder fuel. You can get high flame lengths off dry grass, get your lower limbs going, and that's called a ladder fuel. It's like walking up a ladder right into the canopy of the tree. We talked about continuous fuel beds already. Flame length. That's measure of the flame from down low to as high as it can go. You can get dry grass. My firefighting was in California, don't kill me. Okay, firefighters don't know boundaries. I've come up to Oregon and fought fire before, like Oregon guys have come down where I worked. But ladder fuels, anybody heard the Altamont Pass? Okay, you get dry grass up in here. I've seen flame 20 feet off that in the right conditions with the right amount of oxygen, the right wind behind it. And up there, our rule was don't get in front of it. And we always fought the fire. We stayed in the black, which is the burned area, and we worked from there, doing either a mobile tack or progressive hose lines. Spot fires, flying embers, getting ahead of the fire through the wind, or they get pulled up in the column. During the Oakland Hills fire, I saw a piece of 2x4, about this long, flaming, that got pulled up in the column, come down and drop near where we were. Torching, single trees or large shrubs going up in either by themselves or in a small group, and then you got a crown fire. That's where it gets up in the canopy and takes off. Sounds like a freight train. I remember Glenn, my neighbor, my wife, we were, during the Taylor Creek fire, we kind of positioned ourselves at the corner of Dutchy Way, or Dutcher Creek and Marcy Loop. And we were just patrolling our ATVs because they had the neighborhood shut down. And I took Carol around the corner one time and I said, listen, and it was crowning up on the top of the hill and it sounded like a freight train coming down. It's scary. Structure hardening, okay? Talked a little about sealing your roof and eave vents, crawl space, basement vents, getting the wood piles away from your structure, removing lawn furniture, umbrellas, etc. That's something where embers can land. Now start a fire on your deck, get your deck going or near your house. Cleaning your gutters, okay? So you don't have embers land in those, then they get going in there, you got a little fire and get your roof underneath. What's underneath your metal roof? Wood. Even, you know, it's gonna burn. Anybody here have foam-filled gutters? Good. Don't put it in your gutters because what's foam made out of? Petroleum products. We had it in ours when we moved in the house. Didn't think of it till one day. We were having gutters over top in the winter. Went up to clean the roof and stuff, and I went, wait a minute. Took a piece of it out. It was embedded with pine needles and everything, but the foam itself, stuck a match to it, it looked like gasoline going. And they sell it at Home Depot. So, quick story about foam. One of the most prolific arsonists, John Orr, he worked for the fire marshal's office at a Glendale Fire Department. He was an arson investigator, and he thought a lot of himself. Traveled up and down California and some other states giving lectures on arson investigation. On his way home, he was stopping at places and lighting fires. Okay, what he loved to do was go into upholstery stores, fabric places. 3 matches and a cigarette and a piece of paper, and where did he start the fires at? Where they had the foam. That was his favorite place to place them. He finally got caught, killed 4 people, lit a lot of fires all over the States. Okay, defensible space. How does it help firefighters on their response? During a wildfire, the incident commander, IC, will usually ask for mutual aid, automatic aid. However, it's worked out. Where I worked, we had both. Closest rigs went. Okay, but then they'll call mutual aid. Strike teams, task forces get formed, and they're more than likely going to get assigned structure protection. They go into a neighborhood, their assignment, it'll be 5 engines, and they're told, see what structures you can protect and protect them. We do what's called structure triage. Drive up, look at the structure. Has it got a shake roof full of pine needles? Has it got wood all around it? Has nothing been done to anything, trimming or nothing? They're non-defendable, okay? However, somebody that's taken the time and cleaned up, I'm not talking about every single thing picked up, but it looks like they put some effort into it. As an engine company captain, I'd back down that driveway and say, we're gonna protect this house. We're gonna do what we can, okay? So, and part of the structure hardening was leave hoses on your hose bibs around the house. Because we may not pull lines off the rig if the fire's not gonna be that bad. If we're just getting blowing embers and stuff, we'll use your garden hose to put it out, okay? We won't pull those big lines off unless we really need to, and that's usually after the fire's burned over, and then you're just taking care of stuff that's going. Okay, it's a risk versus gain when you go in and do structural protection. Okay, stay or go. I would never tell anybody to stay. That's a decision you have to make yourself, okay? But what you can do, have more than one way out of your neighborhood if possible. You shouldn't let it get that far where you're gonna get trapped like that. When it goes to level 1, okay, we gotta start thinking here. It goes to level 2, get your car packed, and level 3, head on out. Back your vehicles in if it gets that bad, because you don't want to be backing out of your driveway, a long driveway or something on the street when it's full of smoke and you can't see. And especially when the little bit of panic comes with it. Okay? What about your pets? Your purse, wallet, and cell phone, valuables. Have a thought of a plan of what you're going to take. You can't take everything, but do your best. Sprinklers on the roof. Okay? Our house is 2,200 square feet, single story. The Rainbirds with the adjustable tripod, I put 2 of them on our roof. It covers the entire expanse of the roof. It wets our gutters. It wets all our decks, and it wets all the shrubs around the house. I don't have them do a complete circle. I have them go full this way, and just repeat, 1 at each end. Okay, when you run the hose up onto the roof, put something on it to hold it, because the wind that might come with a fire can blow it off. Okay, they work really great. During the Taylor Creek fire, we had them on our house. We put them on some of our elderly neighbors' houses for them. Okay, and before you leave, turn them on. Might save your house. This is something one of my good neighbors gave me. His dad worked in the National Forest here, Siskiyou National Forest. This is a 10-year span from 1967 to 1977. During that time, there were 147 lightning-caused wildfires. They burned a total of 35 acres. Okay? During that same period, there were 375 human-caused fires, which burned a total of 3,011 acres. Okay? When you do the math, it comes out to 5.84 acres per fire during that 10-year period. What were in the woods back then? Loggers. What else were there out in Cave Junction at the airport? Smoke jumpers. Okay? And there wasn't the political games played that are played with the BLM and U.S. Forest Service. I'm not going to get into it. You want to talk to me outside, I'll tell you some of the stuff I've seen on strike teams. It's amazing. Okay, my last slide. If anybody knows this guy, I don't know if you heard, they stole the cameras out of the lookout station out in Prospect. That camera scans part of Jackson County and Josephine County. And him and his buddy, they don't have a picture of his buddy, but if anybody recognizes him, call Jackson County Sheriff. And now Chris Barnett.
Let's hear it for Ralph. That was great. Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate that informative information. Thank you, Ron. I'm Chris Barnett with Realty Executive Southern Oregon. Been here most of my life and been doing real estate for about 22 years. And with this talk about SB762, a lot of people perked up. Of course, all you guys, I would say, how many homeowners are in the room right now? All right, that's why we're here, right? And we got those letters and we got fired up. How did this happen? So because of you guys speaking up when we were at the Grants Pass High School and you guys perked up and telling representatives and officials, hey, they withdrew the map. So give you guys a round of applause for that, because if you guys didn't do that, who knows? It would have just taken off and we would have been stuck with it. But at least we have a chance. The appeal process was going on, and now they withdrew that map, so that's good. So how does this affect real estate? Because the most important asset we have is home ownership, right? And we all love what we have. Well, with all this regulation, it could mean your value could go down. There could be a whole bunch of different things. So we're just doing hypothetical right now because the map is not set in place yet, and we don't have any, we have a lot of unknown variables how it's going to go. But what this could mean is higher homeowners insurance policies. And I know that's what a lot of you guys are thinking because I've been hearing it. How many people have flood insurance in the room? Flood insurance, raise your hand. All right, FEMA. Let me tell you what, it affects real estate. When you go to try to sell a home with flood insurance, it's an extra cost. And people just do not like having to pay that extra fee. Just like this bill that's going around. I mean, if we have to have all this insurance and this and that, it could affect the values of your real estate property when you go to resell it. It means a borrower has to get insurance. They may or may not be eligible for it. They may tell the homeowner they've got to do all these things to their property in order to get insurance. Or they may drop you. Now, we don't know any of this yet. I did reach out to Allstate Jason Lewis, and he says that, let me see what he said. I wanted him to be here today. But he says the insurance companies say they can't add the ODF map yet, but they have their own fire maps they use for assessment right now. While it doesn't look like they'll do increases immediately, it does set the stage for them to amend maps that become similar to the ODF fire maps. It's just a matter of time. Once it starts, hey, it's in effect. And we're just going to go ahead and give you guys all a letter again, and here's your new homeowner's insurance premium. I mean, that's why we're here, okay? We want to make sure that something doesn't get past us without informing us. I wish I was informed about this bill. How many of you guys were informed about the bill before the letter? Okay, a lot of you guys. And I was like, well, it's just really sad how our government in this state is working, and that's why we're standing up in this room. It's a full house in here tonight. This is awesome. So I just want to let you guys know that the real estate market can be affected by this new map. It could scare people from even coming here. I know when they put that moratorium, when we had the fires really bad a couple years ago, some people were being dropped. They were just saying, no, you guys are in a big fire area right now. We're not going to give you insurance. No homeowners insurance. And the fire was heading their way. So we've all been in this valley long enough. I have, and I've seen the fires. They're getting worse and worse, they seem like. And BLM's got to clean up, okay? We all know that. There's got to be some better fire management out there. And it's a team effort, I know. But I just wanted to speak. Ron wanted me to have you come up and just speak on the real estate values, because it can affect it. The cost of preparing your home or making the area around it could impact it as well. And this is all new and unknown, folks, so we don't know. But I get a lot of questions in real estate. How does this affect my value? Well, we don't know yet. And like Jason Lewis at Allstate said, hey, we're just going to continue giving insurance to the homeowner. There's nothing to be alarmed at this time, he said. But the bigwigs that are up at the top, when they give a directive down, then it all comes back. And then we're like, oh, I thought you said that rates weren't going to go up. Then it happens, right? So anyway, thank you for your time. I didn't want to talk on and on, but thank you. I'm Chris Barnett with Realty Executives. My wife Stephanie's in the back too as well. And thank you, Jason Lewis. All right, who's next?
Good evening. My name is Bob Hart. I'm a land use consultant. Spent 20 years working for the county, making rules like this. Then I saw the light, and or some people say I came over to the dark side, became a private consultant to try and help people through all the rigmarole that gets passed on. People have heard everything's fine now, the map's gone. It's not gone. This is only the beginning, because they play sleight of hand. This started in 2019 under Governor Brown. She had an order to start looking for fire solutions. They came up with a report that's 110 pages long. That's some of the stuff behind what's going on right now. When the legislature started in 2021, this is what Senate Bill 762 looked like. It says, we're going to do a study with the electric companies to see what can be done for fire. That's what was proposed. So everybody go, well, it's just a study. Why worry about it? And then they did what they call the gut and stuff. That study requirement was removed and new provisions inserted. It is 24 pages of this wildfire program. And it was on fast track. This thing was introduced in February. Well, they had an informal meeting in April. They scheduled a public hearing and then canceled it, just like they did that first meeting here in Grants Pass. They held another hearing the next day. Then they recommended that they pass it. It passed out of the Senate 22-7. This was not a mandate from the people. This was partisan politics at its finest. The next day it went to the House. Again passed 49-6. The governor signed it and it was effective immediately because she declared it an emergency. With that, that took away some of the ability of the people to try and do a referendum so we could vote on it. That's not possible. I looked at the hearings that they had on this bill. There were 50 individuals or groups that put in testimony. 25 were organized groups like Thousand Friends, Nature Conservancy, all the green agenda people. There were only 2 people opposed to it, and all they talked about was, well, we think this is a little bit of a government overreach. They didn't talk about any of the specific issues. And you see, when they did this in 2021 during the COVID shutdown. You couldn't go into the Capitol, you couldn't show up for a hearing, all they had were Zoom meetings. So people weren't aware of what was going on. This was done behind your backs. These are the major provisions in the bill. To create a fire risk map created by ODF and the Oregon State University. Next in the bill, to talk with the power companies to come up with a plan for de-energizing, turning off power in high fire danger times. And if you're like me, where does your well get power? From Pacific. So if they turn off the power, what do you got to do to try and fight it? So we've got to be careful. You know, I understand that power lines can cause fires, but they've got to be reasonable about what they're doing. But they're doing overkill. The other things they got to do, they've got to do a plan for taking care of vegetation, looking at all of their facilities and see if they are fire hardened. Defensible space requirements is another part of the new bill. These came from International Wildland and Urban Interface Code. This isn't something that we just came up with. This has been on the books for a while, but it was an international code, so they reached out and grabbed it. Like I said, this has been in the works for a long time. The other thing is the fire marshal is to adopt rules for the standards. This isn't in the bill. You can't read about what the requirements are. It just says the fire marshal is going to come up with them. Trust us, we'll take care of you. The other thing is the fire marshal, he can delegate administration to local governments. So he doesn't have to face the people. He'll make the rules and then have the counties go out and do the inspections. And speaking of inspections, it says there will be a property report at the property level. So everybody's piece of property will have an inspection to see if you have defensive space. And this isn't a one-time thing because they say vegetation grows back. So we're going to keep coming back again and again and again. And if you don't do what we tell you to do, we're going to start fining you. I know I went to the meeting with the state fire marshal. He says, oh, we're just going to do education. Read the bill. The bill says that they can start with a graduated fee schedule to force enforcement. It says there may be some grants to help do that, and that will apply to schools and hospitals, senior facilities, some low income, and limited English proficiency persons. Equity is the word that people use now, is they can pick and choose who they're going to help and who they're not. It says that the land use programs will be updated to address wildfire concerns, to include such things as defensible space, building codes, safe evacuation, and development considerations. Watch out for that term. Building codes are to be revised for new construction and additions to existing dwellings and accessory structures. So if you're going to build a new house, it will apply all these new requirements. If you go in and get a permit to fix the house that you already have, the new rules will apply. And they will have a mapping tool in the building department office, so they're going to start looking at fire codes. They're going to look at seismic loads, snow loads, wind loads. So this is not just a one and done kind of a thing. They're going to look at every building facet of your house. There's some other things that they are proposing. One is DEQ to develop a smoke program for monitoring equipment and data of when it is unhealthy air. And they're going to create clean air shelters in public buildings. Like they have the programs now, when it gets too cold, they can allow people come in off the street and do warming shelters. They're going to do smoke shelters for people to get in out of the smoke. They're also going to have a program to provide air filtration devices for people that do have breathing problems. And so that's another thing that they're going to have, another program. They love programs. The emergency management is to update the statewide plans to prepare and respond to wildfire emergencies. But it doesn't say what they're going to do. It just says, come up with a plan. You give people a blank paper, they're going to fill it up. ODF is to design and implement a plan to reduce wildfire risk by restoration of landscape, resiliency, and reduction of hazardous fuels. That sounds great. They're going to go out there and really thin the forest a bit. That doesn't sound like a bad deal. But they're going to come up with the Oregon Conservation Corps, kind of like a Peace Corps for fire things, where they're going to take kids from 13 to 26 and put them to work on these programs. But it's a state program. They're not going to send them into into BLM or Forest Service land. They are proposing a small forest land grant program to reduce wildfire risk on small tracts of 160 acres over on this side of the Cascades and 640 over in eastern Oregon. So there will be some small programs to try and help give you money to clean up your property, but how much is that going to cost to do the whole state? One of the things that Ralph talked about was they'd like to burn, so they're proposing a prescribed fire program to conduct burns by a qualified individual. So somebody can go in and get a license, submit a plan to state forestry, and they'll say, yeah, it looks like a good plan or not. When you read the fine print, it says if they get people's approval, they can burn across property lines. The other thing it says is if the fire gets away from them, the only recourse you have is if you can show that they were negligent. So they start a fire, it burns your house down, they may not be responsible. It's up to you to have fire insurance to deal with that, but they're talking about a burn program statewide. The state forester, the state fire marshal, is supposed to establish baseline levels of what statewide fire protection is going to be. Here we are with another mandate with no details. ODF is to expand the fire detection system with cameras, staff, and monitoring centers. These are going to help take the place of some of the old watch towers out in the hills where they're using modern computers and cameras to do that. I don't think this is a bad thing. I think this is a step forward to try and do early detection of things. One of the other things is ODF is to increase their wildfire response capacity to include more people, aviation assets, administration, and support. We need firefighters and we need aircraft to get out there and fight fires. ODF shall provide that fire protection in that wildland urban interface. The state Governor Brown is the one that will appoint the program director for the whole wildfire program, and an advisory council of 19 members to be appointed by the House leader and the Senate president. And who's doing that now? It's all one party that's appointing these people. And like Ralph explained, if you don't do it our way, you get unappointed to those commissions. On that council of 19 members, there's a, I think 1,000 Friends is on it. There's a judicial justice kind of a thing that is on there. I think there's one person that's supposed to represent property owners. One of the things is payment for required fire protection or fees that will be a lien against your property, like property taxes. Somebody's got to pay for all this, and the state decided it's you. Right now, this first part, what came in the appropriation in this bill was $201 million. That's the first price tag. And this is an ongoing project, and we don't even have all the details yet. So that can't go anywhere but up. And now the fun part. The devil is in the details. The map's being revised, it's not being eliminated. A new map will be issued. And appeals, you know, they keep saying, well, it's okay. We're going to have an appeal process. You just come in, appeal your designation, and we'll fix it. But the burden is on you to show where they're wrong. You're guilty before you even get started. It's like the old thing, have you stopped beating your wife yet? You can't win with this kind of a system when they say the only reason that we can change the designation is if there's something that's a mistake. Criteria for the classifications, they say it's weather, climate, topography, and vegetation. And all those do work together to show how fires work. And so one of the things they look at is flame length, you know, of the vegetation that's on your property, but they do it in blocks. They haven't gone out and looked at people's property and see, do you have lawn out there? Do you have just dry grass? They haven't done any of that. They just took some computer maps and made some generalizations, and these are the things that we're going to look at. And just to try and even things out, they don't just look at your property, they look at property at 200 feet around your property and then lump you together. So if you have neighbors that don't do a good job, they would lump you in with them as far as the designation of your property. And they also use blocks of vegetation within 1.5 miles to do modeling of fire projections. What's the probability of a fire going on? These are all computer programs. And when I called and asked them, what are the specific details of my piece of property? It says you got to use topography. What did you use? Because if you take a picture from 40,000 feet, you're not going to get very good resolution. They can't tell exactly what's on your piece of property. But they just make educated guesses, and you've got to go prove them wrong. The next part they have is defensible space. The final version hasn't been adopted. The drafts are from the International Wildland Urban Interface Code. And local governments can adopt stricter standards. So even though the state says, well, here's what we're going to deal with, each local jurisdiction can ask for things that are over and above. Like in Jackson County, if you're on a slope, you have to clear 150 feet away from your house. So some of those things are going to be different statewide. Inspections for each piece of property, and like I said, it's not limited to a one-time review. They will set a schedule and they'll come back again and again and again. So you have to maintain this constantly. And if you don't, they'll have a fee structure for non-compliance. Right now, those international codes, it says in the high-risk areas, you need to clear a 50-foot diameter around structures. Not just your house, but accessory structures that are in the general vicinity as well. If you're in an extreme risk area, you need to clear 100 feet around your structures. And for the vegetation management, you've got to have distance between the crowns of the trees of 10 feet, and 10 feet from the trees to your dwellings, and 10 feet from the trees to the property lines. Now, I listened to the fire marshal when he gave his presentation down in Medford. He says, well, we're going to use best practices because if you have a group of trees that kind of shade the ground, that keeps it cool and moist, and so we're not going to make you cut down all your trees. The words say different. And if he's not going to be the ones that's going to be doing the inspection and they pass it on to somebody else, you never know what they're going to do in the inspection and what they're going to administer. You're also supposed to clean up dead wood and debris. These rules are to be in place before the end of the year. So this is moving right along. They are not slowing down the rest of the program. Defensible space requirements cannot be used to approve or deny permits for land use decisions. They're very big on that, saying, if you don't meet your defensive space things, we can't stop a permit for you to replace your house or change and do an addition. But in the next section on land use, it says a local government may amend their land use regulations to include these same requirements that they just said that they're not going to apply. Watch the sleight of hand. The building codes, mandatory code provisions for wildfire shall be adopted from R327, the residential specialty codes, for new construction of dwellings and accessory buildings. And also the code provisions will apply to additions to existing dwellings and accessory structures. And these codes will apply to all lots designated high or extreme. So Jeff Golden's and Pam Marsh's property, they're not affected because they're not in the high or extreme. The code requires roofing to meet fire specifications. If you're going to replace at least half of your roof, you got to replace the whole thing. Same thing with exterior coverings. Gutters must be non-combustible and have coverings to prevent leaves and debris. So, ventilation openings shall not be installed on the underside of eaves, soffits, and cornices. It can be dangerous that the things can get up into the attic and start a fire from the embers that come about. But it says if you're going to do ventilation, which you need to do to keep all the moisture from accumulating in your attic, you can have a screen that's 1/16 to a maximum of 1/8 inch. But if you put that kind of a screen in the end and you got air blowing through for ventilation, that's going to clog up, so you're probably going to have to clean those vents at least every year. Walls must be a non-combustible material, ignition resistant, heavy timber, or log wall. An approved assembly is using 5/8 inch Type X sheetrock next to the studs before you do the exterior covering. Like I've got an old house built in the 40s. It's got painted wood shingles on the side. Not the safest thing, but if I'm going to replace it, I've got to put sheetrock up first, then new T111 or something else, or some kind of a gypsum panel to make it at least a 1-hour firewall. And if you do an addition, it doesn't apply to just the addition, it applies to the whole house. You've got to do the whole thing. The only exceptions that I saw in the code is for accessory structures that are 200 square feet or smaller, and, they always throw in the and, it's got to be more than 50 feet from any other structure. So if you've got a small shop, storage bin, something like that, these things would apply to it unless it's more than 50 feet from other structures. And your walkways and porches and balconies, they must be fire-resistant material as well. And the bottom has to be hardened as well to make sure that the embers don't come up from underneath. Windows must be double pane or tempered glass. And this shows you the accelerated thing that they're on. They've already had the first hearing on this. It took place August 16th. Did you get a letter saying that we're going to consider these rules and regulations? I didn't. Nobody did. But they do have a window. You still can make comments until next Monday. So that's the email address, that rules coordinator at dcbs.oregon.gov. So you can still come in with comments on any of this. The rules are to be finalized by October 1st, and they'll be effective by April 1st of next year. The Oregon Home Builders Association said based just on the changes of this code, nothing else, not counting inflation or anything else, just the rules here would increase the cost of a 1,400 square foot house by $8,200. So, yeah, affordable housing. And another thing says we're more than 40,000 housing units short of meeting the needs of Oregon. Land use. This is my bailiwick. I've done it for over 40 years, no, over 50 years. I started back in the 70s in the city of LA. I thought I'd come up here and just have a great time. But Oregon is different than anybody else. They have a Department of Land Conservation and Development, and they're to identify updates that are needed to the statewide plans and land use programs, local comprehensive plans, and zoning codes to address wildfire hazard. They are required to come up with this report. I think it's in October. And they will outline what are the things that they want the counties to do. So they're going to address issues such as defensible space, building codes, safe evacuation, and development considerations. That's the term that I talked about. Planning codes can deny applications if the criteria are not met. Development considerations can deny buildings on property in extreme and high wildfire areas. So if you got a piece of vacant land, it breaks my heart that I've had to tell people, you've owned a piece of land for 40 years, it's been in that family, you can't build a house on it because of the rules that the state and the counties have adopted. Reasons that they can deny things like this, and these are some of the kind of things that I had to address when I made applications for people. If you had a substandard road, if you had a lack of structure fire company or a fire district, if there was inadequate fire capacity in that fire district. Some of our districts are not really great. I think Wolf Creek has been one that's been kind of hard. If you don't, looking at surrounding vegetation, lack of water storage, box canyons, lack of a secondary access in emergency or steep slopes. So all of these things, you have to prove that what you're doing is appropriate for the density of housing that you're proposing. Like I said, this report is due October 1st. The project to reduce fire risk. Projects are to be designed and implemented to reduce fire fuels and promote landscape resiliency. The plan is on a 20-year cycle. So the projects that they develop now, it'll take 20 years before they complete this one and they have another round of what goes next. But the thinning that is supposed to reduce these fire fuels, you cannot do this thinning in inventoried roadless areas, riparian reserves, late successional reserves, old growth for spotted owl, wild and scenic river areas, critical habitat for threatened or endangered species, federally designated area of critical environmental concern, or designated wilderness study areas. They don't even have to be adopted. If they're under study, you can't go within them. So, yes, we're going to do all these programs to help reduce the fire potential out there, but we can't do it here and here and here and here. Power companies, they must develop plans to submit to the Public Utility Commission to include protocols of when they're going to de-energize the facilities to mitigate wildfires, describe how to carry out vegetation management, identify procedures and standards for inspection of infrastructure. All this costs money, and where's it going to come from? It's going to be recovered by consumer rates. So your power bill is going to go up. The wildfire program director is appointed by the governor. He oversees the implementation of this bill, and he monitors and assesses the financial impacts to local jurisdictions. Doesn't say anything about the financial impacts on the citizens of the state. So they're not worried about how much it's going to cost you. All they're going to worry about is what it's going to cost their departments. It says they're to engage the insurance companies on policy coverage provisions. And that's all it says is engage. We're going to talk to them about it. There is nothing in the bill that says they can't raise your rates or cancel you. It just says, well, we'll talk to them. This is from a statement by Senator Dennis Linthicum from Klamath County. He says, ORS 477.060 limits fire cost to property owner not to exceed $25 a lot. This limitation was repealed in this bill, but it left ORS 477.270. It says, so cost for providing protection for privately owned forest land shall be a lien upon such property. So you can lose your property just like you can for not paying property taxes. And this is for the cost to provide fire protection. So the costs are passed on to you, in addition to your normal taxes that you pay. Here's your statements from the Wildfire Council when they did that 110-page report. The accumulation of fuels on fire-prone federal forests is particularly impactful to Oregonians, as 92 to 93% of the burned acres occur on federal lands. So the fires that we have, most of it, almost 93% of it, is covered on federal lands. That's where the impact should be levied, is on the federal properties and not on ours. Oregon is the nation-leading land use systems. They have limited the impact of sprawl within the wild-urban interface to an extent not possible elsewhere. What that is the LCDC telling people that they can't build out in the forest. If you got 20 acres out there, can you split your property? In a lot of cases, no. If you got 10 acres, can you split it for your kids to have a house? No. They're going to make it more and more difficult to divide your property or even build on vacant properties for those areas that they consider as high or extreme danger wildfire, because we don't want people out there to get hurt. But they forget it's not their property, it's yours. The term wild urban interface, WUI, in Oregon is primarily related to definitions of the Forest Service, or ODF, which don't take into account fire or fuel types other than forest and have limited usefulness. When the WUI was first talked about, which is where houses and forests come together, they talked about when you got to 4 dwelling units per 40 acres, 1 house per 10 acres. in the new definition that they adopted just before they sent the letters out to everybody, they changed that to 1 house and 40 acres. So with that increased density, what did that do? It made the area bigger that they're going to control. It says population trends continue to climb upwards while the percentage of vulnerable people remains fairly flat. So even though Oregon's growing, the real impact to us people that live in the rural area hasn't really changed that much. So current status, there are 11 state agencies that are continuing to move forward with this program. It hasn't stopped with the map. The risk map will be revised and republished. From what I hear, it's going to change less than 10% in all the changes that they're going to make. A new appeals period will be opened, but no part of the program addresses insurance costs other than to contact the insurance companies. This law is in place today. The only way the citizens can change it is by initiative petition, gathering signatures, going out, and this could take 2 years to try and get it on the ballot to vote on something. What we need to do is do what we did when the map first came out, is to contact our representatives and senators to stop the bill now before more damage is done. We need to contact the governor. Your action delayed the map, and we need action now to repeal the entire program or put it to a vote. Statements during the adoption of this thing. Senator Golden was so much shocked by the pushback of the bill is beginning to see comments made by Republicans in the committee hearings neglected to consider there will be extensive public input attached to the rulemaking. I've already explained they're making the rules and they're not telling you that it's going on. You're just supposed to automatically know. Fred Gerard said this bill I would rate as the worst bill of the session. Every obstacle known to God and man is put before these people so they can't rebuild, and this is going to be another one. He was referring to the people rebuilding after the Beachy Creek fire. He said after 2 years, only 25% of the people have got their permits approved to rebuild. Christine Drazen, I recognize people are telling me that this bill has been years in the making. This was not a public process. It's not. So who do we have to thank? We have to thank our governor. So in the back on the table when you came in, I put out sheets that talk about the governor's contact information, your senator, your representative, and the different departments that are involved in this. We need to contact these people now and have them do something. If we don't rise up now, all of this is just going to keep moving right on down the line, just like a wave, and we're going to get drowned. Jeff Golden, he's the chief sponsor. He's from Ashland. He needs to be contacted. And here's the departments. Like I said, I've got pieces of paper in the back that have all these contacts for the state university, the fire marshal, DLCD. And I guess unless there's anything else, we're about ready for questions. Oh, Ron's got some comments to close this up before we start the question.
Something I noticed, a couple questions. How many people have felt blindsided by this bill? Okay, where was our representative?
That's right.
Okay, I'm not going to name names, but everybody listen to Bill Meyer? Okay, one of our commissioners got on his show the other 2 mornings ago, and he bragged. The governor called me this morning. We talked about 762. I worked with her on that when I was up at Salem. Did he let us know? Did you hear anything from any of our commissioners? You need to get on there, you know what's about this. because they are not communicating to who?
Stuffing their pockets.
Yep, and we're their constituents, but they're ignoring us. So that's all I gotta say.
So I hope you understand this bill a little bit better. It's horrendous, it's terrible. It's a direct attack on your property rights. This is driven by extreme environmentalists. Which button do I push here? Hey, Ralph, which button do I push here? Okay. Everybody see that?
Hang on a few minutes, we're going to give you a mic.
Hey, hang on, we're going to have questions and answers if you want to. We've got a mic to go around the room. This is a map of the Wildlands Project. This is the thing that's driving this agenda. We are slated to be moved out of here. If the extreme environmentalists get their way, we won't live here. They want to push us out. This is how they're going to implement it. I wondered for a long time how they were going to drive people out of here. Well, this is part of that plan. You know what this is? This is a government map. It's America 2050. Those are the mega regions, after they drive us out of here, that they want us to move into stack and pack smart cities. This is a government page. Google it, America 2050. There's a whole program that goes with it. This is the dream of the environmentalists, to have unbroken corridors where big carnivores can travel from Alaska to Mexico. And they're doing this all over the country. They're highly funded, they're highly organized, and they're supported by left-leaning politicians. They have money beyond belief. In fact, some of them have taken money from Russia and China. Why? Because they cut American production. One of the tenets in the Communist Manifesto is grab the means of production. What's production? It's what's produced from the ground. All true wealth comes from the ground. Okay, so the wealth of a nation is determined by how much they can produce from the ground. Now, what group is there that has hindered us on producing from the ground? We know who they are. I want to save some time for questions and answers. The Great Reset, you ever heard this statement? You'll own nothing, but you'll be happy. That's what's happening on an international stage. Wake up, people. This is the battle we're in. This is a war. This is a battle. We have to win this. If you like freedom, you have to fight. Don't go home and turn on the TV set. That's not going to accomplish anything. That's the problem we have. We've been indifferent to public affairs, and that's the problem. Talk about insurance rates. This is what happened in California. Those people that got burned out a few years ago, they couldn't get insurance, so they had to go to Lords of London, and then finally they dropped them, and guess what? California went into the insurance business. That's what's going to happen here in Oregon. Oregon wants to go into the insurance business, the state, and it won't be cheap. This is a court case that shows even the federal government was concerned about the Wildlands Project because it's hindering production of natural resources. This is not new. This is not hidden. You can find this stuff, but you have to look. If you don't look, you'll never see it. Pam Marsh, part of KS Wild. Anybody know what KS Wild is? They're your local communist in your own backyard. We've fought their monument proposals before. Okay, so we're going to get to questions in just a second here. Do you see this? They passed a huge climate bill. You know why there's an emergency attached to this? Climate. This is the Wildlands Network. There's a whole network of these environmental groups that are implementing this program throughout the western United States, throughout the whole country. Now here's an interesting comparison. On the right, we have the Forest Service lands and the BLM lands, and then you have the map they produce. Do you notice something about that map? It lines up with the National Forest. So where's the problem? Why are we burdening property owners when the real problem is the federal government? This is Dave Foreman. He's the founder of Earth First. The radical environmentists that burnt down sawmills, spiked trees, actually killed some loggers. This is his statement. We must make this an inhospitable place for capitalism and their projects. We must reclaim the roads and the plowed land farms, halt dam construction, tear out existing dams, free shackled rivers, and return to wilderness million acres of previously settled land. That's your property. That's what he's talking about here. You think this isn't happening? It's happening right there in front of your face. You got to look for it. I'm going to stop right there. I want to open this up for questions. Hey, Ralph, can we get that on the microphone? You got it going? I want to hear from you because I want to give this to our elected officials. Where are they at? How come they're not listening? This is a big issue. This is so important for everybody in this room. Where are they representing you? Do they represent you? Time to change some places here.
So my question is, can we do this as a multi-prong approach? We want to repeal 762. That's going to be a huge uphill battle. We have the people that sponsored this asking for an exemption for it. Can we ask Josephine County to be exempt? Can we get that going as another part?
Your county government can do a little bit, but you got to understand how the hierarchy works in the state of Oregon. The counties are a subset of the state. It's like it said in the bill. They have to adopt in Senate Bill 100, which has created LCDC. They have to adopt the 19 statewide goals, okay? But they can be stricter, but not less strict than what the goals are. So the county has limited on its ability to do anything here. The thing that's going to change this is you guys. You're going to change this. And the only way you're going to change this is get united and stand up. We need to have another meeting. We need to have another meeting. We need to have another meeting. Where's that microphone?
I have a question. You tell us to contact those different people, but when you call or email, you get nothing back, so you feel unheard, so then you give up. So I feel that all of our time is precious, so I can't spend hours doing this. So I'm happy to have a voice in this, but you get nowhere. So when you say speak up, blah, 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 what does that mean exactly?
You're doing it tonight. You're here, right? This is what we have to do. We have to become so huge that the news can't ignore us, that we win this battle in the court of a public opinion. Do you understand what I just said? This is a publicity thing. We have to get so popular and so organized that the politicians can't ignore us anymore. So you guys all have to work with me. You have to work with us and build this thing to something that means something.
Yeah, if you make phone calls for 5 minutes and he makes phone calls for 5 minutes, after a while it builds up to where it overloads their system and they can't ignore us. Well,
They may be.
well then, remember that in November, the ones that call you back, vote for them. The ones that don't call you back, vote them out of office. Then get them, they voted for it. If they voted for it, they should be out of office.
Can I?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Where's that microphone?
Right here.
Oh, okay.
Right here.
Okay.
Just a real quick one. Jeff Golden had a meeting at the Medford Library about 4 months ago. I was there. There were 20 people, 2 speakers. I was one of 2. I'm just going to ask you people, where were you? Now, he did not address 762. I didn't know anything about it. Normally, I keep up on things. This one got me. I didn't know about it. But anyway, he was available for questions, and there was an opportunity. Our county commissioners in Jackson County, you can go before them. Apparently, the local people now finally are going to have some input. Our 3 county commissioners will listen. You have 5 minutes at every meeting, 9 o'clock at the old courthouse. Those 3 people listen, and they'll get back to you. So you do have a chance for some input. Attend meetings. Sherman.
You gotta get engaged, you gotta stay involved. I always tell people, you can ignore politics, but it's not gonna ignore you. Obviously, this is what happened. It didn't ignore you, did it? It's a hit right in your back pocket, your wallet.
Are you going to have a meeting in Jackson County?
We want to do a meeting in Jackson County. We'd like to do a meeting in every county in the state. What we want to do is organize a movement to push back against this stuff. If we don't organize and grow our numbers, we're going to get ignored. If we leave here tonight, we don't get together again, what was the point?
You need the media. Where's the media?
We got on TV news. We contacted all the stations. You got to understand, they're not on our side most of the time.
If you have one in Jackson County, is there a way they can notify people in Jackson County or send something out, or?
Well, you know, that's a good question, because the way we got you here, well, mostly was flyers and posts. How many people are here because of a flyer? Okay. How many people are here because of a Facebook post or something like that? How many people came here because somebody told you about it? Okay, so those are the three ways we're going to spread the word.
And we need somebody to step up in Jackson County, because this happened because Ron put up $1,000 of his own money to rent this place for tonight. This is not subsidized by anything. We need to step up and tell people, we're done. We're done sitting on the couch. We're getting up, and you're not going to stay in office if you keep doing this to us. Listen to us now, or you're not going to be involved.
Back here.
Lady first,
I was just wondering, concerning fires, we know that weather is a big part of it, but is there ever any mention of the geoengineering that's going on with the weather?
I think there's a lot to be said for what the federal government is doing and not doing. The geoengineering, I'm not completely up to speed on that. I know it happens, and I think you've all seen the signs in the sky. So, but this meeting is more about what can we do about Senate Bill 762? What can we do about 762? Here, I've been involved in a lot of different movements and stuff. The thing that works is massive people protesting. We'll be friendly, we'll be nonviolent and peaceful. But if you don't tell your neighbors and friends to come to the next meeting, what have we accomplished tonight? All we've accomplished is educating you on what's inside this horrendous bill. But how are we going to stop the next legislation? Because they're not done yet. Do you think these people are done yet? Did you see that big map, yellow and red map I put up there? Okay, that's a real thing. It's not hard to find. That map was developed by Dr. Michael Kaufman. He's dead now. But that stopped that biodiversity treaty from being implemented in the Senate. Yes.
Like this, can you get everybody to sign petitions that you can deliver to these politicians? Show them how many people actually showed up and kicked off.
Yeah, we could do that. That's a good plan. We fought a monument, and what we did is we did postcards to the Department of Interior. We sent, I don't know how many postcards, 5,000?
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
Ron, we got a microphone.
Yeah, go ahead.
What about a class action lawsuit?
Well, if you,
Now that's going to make them hit them in the wallet, and that's going to get people's attention.
if you go on the state court, you're going to lose.
Federal court.
That's the only way it's going to win. You're going to have somebody with some deep pockets, because this is not going to be an easy process. Well, everybody'd have to chip in.
Why can't we make the media aware?
Well, we called them. They were here. We got on the TV news tonight.
We can all call them.
Microphone. You had their hand up. Feedback.
People, read your Constitution. Then at the end of the Constitution, read it really heavy. It's of the people, by the people, for the people, and we shall not perish. Which means the government works for us. We don't work for those sons of bitches.
Hello, Ron. Whoops. Wow, that's loud. Okay. The Josephine County and all counties in the state of Oregon, the way our land laws are written, that we our county commissioners have to read an ordinance into life, and it takes 3 times. And these new rules and regulations are coming down from the state. So do we have a means of preventing them, and at what point, at what cost do we start saying no? Should we be putting more pressure on the local guys here to say no? And I know that they hold the purse strings, and they can take money from us. They went to centralized planning and centralized taxes, and they give back a portion of what we're supposed to have. But if there's a point when they've taken everything, what good is it? Why don't we say no and say stop it now?
I was in the planning department in the early 80s when we had to adopt the comprehensive plan. At that time, the county commissioners stood up to the state and said, we're not going to do it the way you want us to. What the state did was to forbid Josephine County from issuing permits on all of the properties that were in their conflict. So that's the kind of power that they bring. It's a bigger thing than just having 3 county commissioners say, gee, we're going to stand up against it. It's going to take all the people to stand up with them to try and stop this. I don't have a clean answer on all that. I just don't.
Okay. I just have something to say for all the young people out here that are only into the internet. Did anybody ever forget about writing a letter? I worked for the VA for 31 years, and we used to send out letters to all the patients, and they'd get 2 and 3 letters. And there's laws, federal laws, that say when you send that mail to the government, they have to deal with it. They have to assign somebody to open it up and deal with it, because they never know what they're getting. So everybody out here, they're just concerned about, well, you can't get anybody through email or anything. Write them a letter. Hey, now it's costing you 60 cents to send it.
Okay, I have 2 things, and one thing to what this lady just said. You can send a letter for 2 or 4 cents. There's 2 post offices that most people don't understand, and you can if you write the letter just correctly, it'll go through just fine. I've done it. And you can go on YouTube and just look for it, sending a letter for 2 or 4 cents, and it'll come up, you'll find it, you can do it. I've even talked to the post office, and they said, yep, that's the real deal. So, my thought is, here we are having another conversation. There's conversations all over the internet. The powers that be don't follow the law. They don't follow strict protocols for what they say they're supposed to do. At some point, we're going to have to say no, and that means we need to take over our county. I'm not sure how this is done, but somehow we need people in there that will stand up or make these people get a backbone that are in the county. And I don't care what the federal government says. The county needs to have a backbone. They come and say, no, we're not going to let you issue permits. They do it anyways. I don't know what the consequences are, but they need the people behind them. Talking to people out there in the world today, trying to educate them, it's like they're part of a cult. And if you look at some of the descriptions of what it is to be in a cult, how people are controlled, that's the way people are. Try to give them information. Oh, I don't want that crap. Well, wait a minute. What are you going to do about it? Somebody's got to stand up, and it takes one to be a leader. You know, we need to look around for somebody that's got a little charisma that can stand up and speak and has got some guts. Lon's doing a lot here. I'd like to do more, but I'm not the guy. But there's got to be someone in our community that we can find that has to stand up and lead the pack. And, you know, you try to start a group, and pretty soon people just peter away. Well, that's got to change. I don't know how to do it. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Questions back there? We're in a fight for the survival of America. Do you guys understand that? Do you understand we're in a fight for the survival of America? This is really the battle we're in. And this is just one one small battle. This is aimed strictly at your property rights.
Hello, my name is Scott Opsett. I'm a broker here in Southern Oregon with Keller Williams. And the reason I'm here tonight is I had a client from Cage Junction call me this weekend, and their insurance company dropped them for a defensible space. It's coming right now. Look out. She told me that several of her neighbors have also been canceled also. Look out.
Okay, so who in this room is in favor of having the next meeting? Let's see, show of hands. Okay, where are we going to do this? We have to organize it. If we don't organize now, the left is very organized. I'm sorry to say that. I can't hear you. It's not following.
Okay. You can chime in.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. Where? You saw that in the Eagle?
Hello?
How many of us gave us your emails tonight? Okay, and phone numbers. Okay. How many do Facebook at all? Okay. We're gonna.
Hey, Ron, we got a question back here.
Okay.
So my question is, I think a prudent people would approach this from more than one angle, basically a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And I think that's a great idea to have the law repealed. I'm looking for the plan B and plan C. Perhaps a constitutional sheriff would stand up against a tyrannical government. And also a plan C, and I'm open for ideas, but we need a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C.
You're hired. So you want these things, are you going to help organize the next meeting? Are you going to get involved? Give me your phone number and your email. I mean, if you think this is one and done, we're losing. We're not going to win by just doing a meeting like this and going home.
Okay.
We have to.
This is a recommendation for those who know anybody that's had insurance problems. If your insurance company has canceled you or they have raised your rates, the Oregon Insurance Commissioner has said that you should report them to him because it is illegal for them to do that. And they're subject to a $10,000 fine. Now that's just what he put out publicly, but Bob said that it's not in the law. So we're getting conflicting stories here. But if you do know anybody, have them produce the documentation. So when the website is finally up, we can post that on the website and use that as ammunition.
So this issue is not going away.
Excuse me, I want to respond to this gentleman right here. I'm a pastor of a church. And my church, I showed up at church Tuesday morning, had a message on my answering machine that my insurance company did not want to renew my policy because of where I'm located, because of the wildfire map. So it's happening. I called the insurance commissioner's office, and they said they are perfectly within their rights to not renew anybody's policies. So don't believe what the insurance commissioner says.
So are we here tonight because we trust what government says? I think not. So we're going to inform you when we're going to have the next meeting. I would appreciate any help and donations I can to pay for this event. It would help me.
Ron, we have a question back here.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So the news doesn't want to come. The news is biased. The news is not on our side. So we have these meetings, and then, which I think is awesome, and I think we need to keep doing them and doing them. But if this is a protest, nobody sees it. So where do we protest when people see it?
Take it to them. Take it to them.
Yeah, so let's do that.
You take it to them. The closest place to see the government is the county building. Okay, the next place is Salem. Let me give you a little history. Okay? I don't want to stop anybody's questions if they got more questions. We We were involved in the Klamath water crisis in the year 2000 when they cut off the water from the farmers. We took and helped, we were part of organizing the 20,000 people in the streets of K Falls doing a bucket brigade. Nothing changed until we got a change in administration. We need to get rid of this governor. But we don't have not much of a replacement for her, sorry.
Hey Ron, I noticed in your slides that you had up, one of them, it stated real clear that the only way this thing's going to change is by an initiative. We can't count on Salem to repeal this. They're not going to go against their own vote. They're going to stand up for what they believe was the right decision. It's going to take us filing some kind of lawsuit or a citizen's initiative. The only way a law changes is if you file a new law that repeals the old law, just like you had up there. That's how the whole marijuana thing went down here in Oregon. They could have repealed the laws and stopped arresting people for marijuana, but they had to go and create a whole new law to justify and make legal the things that were illegal. So the only way this thing's ever going to change is we have to do a citizen's initiative or petition, and we need to work fast on it. Like you said, it's going to take 2 years to run through the process, and time's ticking now. The clock's already running, they're working and plotting against us, and we're just standing around having meetings. We need to get a lawyer, we need to find a way to actually start putting this shit on paper and filing it with the courts. We're filing it with the state and saying we demand a change as citizens. We're sick of this shit, you're plotting against us, and we're not going to take it.
And that's what happens. You're not going to get anywhere without the numbers. You have to have large numbers of people. To do an initiative petition, I don't know how many signatures it takes statewide, but it takes a whole bunch, and it has to be organized and
Got a comment there? Got a comment. Art Robinson pushed the initiative to protect our private property from the planning department. Do you remember that? It was before the primary. And Josephine County, by a landslide, said, no way, Jose, you're not coming on my property for any reason other than the Constitution of the Fourth Amendment protects us for that. We have to do the same thing. He pushed that ordinance so that we could go and collect the signatures to defeat them, and it worked. We did that. We have to do the same thing for this, but we must be united. That's the problem, and we must be consistent and just as hard-nosed as Art Robinson was. He was out in front of that post office, and he was not well, and he did it anyway. He was out there in the cold. I was with him at times, but I was mostly up in Merrill or somewhere else, Williams. But we worked hard for those signatures. Thank you very much. It came from everybody in this room, and all the people that left, I bet you they signed that initiative. So we got to do that on this. Thank you.
Okay, so an initiative petition will overturn this law, but that's going to take organization. It's going to take people volunteering. It's going to take people willing to get out of their house and get involved in it. We can overturn this, but we're not going to do it just in Josephine County. It's going to have to be a statewide effort. I think most of the people that are on the red in that map would be 100% for doing that. So let's figure out having another meeting. I don't have a date. I'd like to have a date. But if you didn't leave me your email, leave it back there. Give me a phone number, and we'll contact everybody again, and we'll get another meeting going. Do I have any more questions here?
I got one more real quick for you, Ron. It's not a question, it's just a fact that on January 1st of 2020, the state of Oregon also passed another law called SB762, which gives farmers, ranchers, and people that live in rural areas the right and immunity to start defending their property from wildfire. So if you live in an urban interface like I do that abuts BLM land and a fire starts on their property, I have a right, along with my family and my local farmers and people that live in my area, that we can go out and we can start suppressing that fire before ODF or anybody shows up. And we'll start cutting trees, digging lines, using our tractors. And if you go on the internet, you can find it. That bill was signed on it went into effect on January 1st, 2020. And the title is Farmers, Ranchers Immune from Liability While Fighting Wildfires. And so that works for most of the people in here that are affected.
Okay, this meeting has been recorded and it's going to be up on YouTube. So I want to let you all know, leave your phone number and your email back there. We're going to organize another meeting. We're going to push back on this thing. What's the question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it seems like technology is what's being used with these governments, officials to tear us down. And I'm thinking, well, why aren't we talking about a website that we can go to that's got this information on here? Because then we can tell our friends that can't make it to these meetings, or if there was a meeting. I gotta say, I appreciate you putting this effort together, but you gotta use the technology, because the times we're living in right now, they're trying to change us into technology. We gotta stop this shit.
Okay, you're going to be at the next meeting. We can talk about that.
A website.
Yeah, a website. Websites are only as good as the storefront. Only counts as if people get there. You have to promote a website.
And then make it more web. It all connect.
Well,
network.
I agree, and we've used Facebook to get the word out here on this meeting.
Right.
Quite well.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Here's what we need to do. We need to put a planning organization together to go farther with this. We got another question down here. Hey, Ralph, we got a question down here.
You know, if we need to be publicized, the best place that will do it is the Eagle. And I think that we need to make it heard there. I mean, I'm here because I saw the sign and I also got the email from Simmons that this meeting was going tonight. And the other thing is, I don't know enough of what's going on, but I think that we need to figure out 4 or 5 pet peeves that the state really wants. And I think we need class action lawsuits to stop them, and then they'll be listening to us, and we'll have to negotiate.
I like it. You're going to be at the next meeting?
I hope so.
Okay. See, we need to put a group together that's committed. All of world history revolves around a small group of committed individuals willing to make change. This is how the environmentalists are working. So I want you guys to pay attention to your emails and to your phone numbers, and pay attention to Facebook. We're going to put another meeting together and organize to push back on this thing. We can do an initiative petition and throw this thing out, but that takes a lot of effort from a lot of volunteers. So I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I know it's late for everybody and you probably want to go home. So thank you for coming. If anybody wants to stay and help put these chairs up, that would be much appreciated. These chairs got to go back on racks. So if anybody wants to stick around and help with that, I'd appreciate that very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all coming. This is not over. This is just the beginning. So get involved, stay involved.